My life felt like a phone screen on low battery. Just gray. Every day was the same old same old. I would wake up, drag myself to a job that paid the bills but cost me my soul, and then come home to scroll endlessly. My thumbs would ache from swiping past pictures of other people living their best lives. Lives full of color, adventure, and purpose. Mine was just a blurry, gray existence. I felt like a background character in my own movie. Just sort of there. Not really doing anything important. It was a heavy feeling, like wearing a wet blanket all the time. I was lost, and honestly, I didn't even know where to start looking for a map. The frustration was a constant buzz under my skin. It was this annoying little hum that never went away. I wanted more, but I didn't know what more was. I felt so small, so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The highlight of my day was finding a funny meme or watching a video of a cat falling off a table. That was it. That was the peak of my excitement. I was just floating through time, waiting for something to happen. But I wasn't doing anything to make it happen. I was stuck in a loop of wake, work, scroll, sleep, and it was draining every last drop of motivation out of me. I would often lie in bed at night staring at the ceiling and ask myself, is this it? Is this all my life is going to be? The silence was always the loudest answer. It screamed back at me that yes, this was it, unless I did something about it. But what could I do? I felt like I had no special talents, no hidden skills, nothing that made me stand out. I was just another face in the crowd, another person scrolling through life. The feeling of being unimportant was like a shadow that followed me everywhere, making everything feel dull and pointless. It was a lonely and exhausting way to live. The world outside my window seemed so vibrant and alive, but I was living in a black and white movie. My apartment was quiet, my social life was basically non-existent, and my dreams were gathering dust somewhere in the back of my mind. I was so busy comparing my life to the curated perfection I saw online that I forgot how to live my own. I was a spectator, not a player. This cycle of feeling lost and frustrated was my normal, and I had almost accepted it. Almost. But a tiny part of me, a very quiet part, hoped for a change, for a splash of color in my gray world. One rainy Saturday I decided to clean out the closet. It was more of a procrastination task than anything else. As I dug through old boxes of junk, my hand hit something hard and familiar. I pulled out a dusty wooden box, the kind you get in a cheap art set for your 10th birthday. Inside, nestled in worn-out plastic, were old, crusty paintbrushes and dried-up tubes of acrylic paint. I held a paintbrush in my hand, its bristles stiff and stained with faded blue. A memory, faint at first, then suddenly clear, washed over me. I remembered being a kid, spending hours painting messy, colorful pictures, not caring if they were good, just loving the feeling of creating something. For a moment I just stood there, holding that old brush. A feeling I hadn't felt in years flickered inside me, a little spark of excitement, but it was quickly followed by a wave of doubt. "You can't paint," a voice in my head scoffed. "You haven't done this in forever. You'll be terrible." The voice was loud and convincing. I almost put the box back, ready to shove it into the dark corner of the closet and forget about it. It seemed easier to just go back to my phone, back to the comfortable numbness of scrolling. The thought of trying and failing was scary. What was the point? But I didn't put it back. I don't know why. Maybe I was just so bored of my own life that even the possibility of failure seemed more interesting than another afternoon of doing nothing. I took the box into my living room and set it on the floor. I looked at the hardened paint tubes and the stiff brushes. Everything in me screamed that this was a stupid idea. I was an adult now, with an adult job and adult responsibilities. I didn't have time for childish hobbies, plus I would probably just make a huge mess and create something ugly. The self-doubt was a powerful force, pushing me to give up before I even started. Despite the hesitation, I couldn't shake the memory of how happy painting used to make me. It was a pure, simple joy. I remembered the smell of the paint and the feel of the brush on paper. It was a world away from the sterile glow of my phone screen. So, with a deep breath and a whatever attitude, I decided to give it a try. I told myself it would be a secret, no one had to know. If my paintings were horrible, they would be my horrible paintings, and only I would see them. It felt safe that way. I wasn't doing it to be good, I was just doing it to do something, anything, different. My first attempts were, to put it nicely, a disaster. The colors were muddy, the lines were shaky, and my paintings looked like something a confused toddler would make. It was frustrating. My hands didn't seem to remember what my brain wanted them to do. For every one decent brushstroke, there were 10 ugly ones. I wanted to create the beautiful images I saw in my head, but what ended up on the canvas was a chaotic mess. It was discouraging, and that old voice of doubt came back telling me, "See, I told you, you're no good at this." I almost gave up a dozen times during that first week. But something kept me going. Maybe it was stubbornness. I refused to be beaten by a canvas and some paint. I started watching tutorials online. Late at night, when the world was asleep, my apartment became my secret studio. I'd prop my phone up and watch videos about color theory, blending techniques, and how to hold a brush properly. I learned from artists all over the world, pausing and rewinding until I understood. I practiced and practiced, filling cheap canvases with my clumsy experiments. My fingers were constantly stained with paint, and my tiny living room started to smell like a real art studio. I was learning, slowly but surely. Slowly, things started to click. My lines became steadier, my colors became brighter. I was still far from perfect, but I was improving. I was creating things that I didn't immediately hate. One night I finished a small painting of a starry night sky, and for the first time I felt a real sense of pride. It wasn't a masterpiece, but it was mine. I had made it. With a surge of courage I didn't know I had, I took a picture of it and posted it on a new, anonymous social media account. I didn't tell any of my friends, I just sent it out into the digital void, not expecting anything. At first, nothing happened. My post got maybe 3 likes, probably from bots. It was what I expected, but I kept painting and I kept posting. I posted my failures and my small successes. Then, something shifted. A few people started leaving nice comments. "This is beautiful," one said. "I love your style," said another. Each comment was like a little jolt of energy. My follower count started to creep up. 10 followers became 50, then 100, then 1,000. People were noticing. Strangers from all over the world were connecting with my work. The gray blur of my life was finally starting to get some color. The growing online community became my biggest motivation. These weren't just followers, they were my cheerleaders. They celebrated my progress and encouraged me when I felt stuck. Seeing their positive reactions made me want to get even better, to push my creativity further. Soon, people started asking if my paintings were for sale. The first time someone sent me a direct message asking to buy a piece, I thought it was a joke. Me, selling my art. The idea was wild. I was just the girl who painted in secret in her living room, but the requests kept coming and I realized this could be more than just a hobby. I decided to take the leap. I opened a small online shop, listing a few of my favorite pieces. I was so nervous that my hands were shaking as I hit the publish button. I didn't expect anything to sell, but within an hour my first painting sold, then another, and another. It was one of the most surreal and incredible moments of my life. People were willing to pay money for something I had created with my own 2 hands. The feeling was indescribable. It was a validation that went far beyond a simple like on a post. My passion was becoming a real, sustainable thing. As my little shop grew, I reached a crossroads. I was still working my soul-crushing day job and painting every night. I was exhausted but happier than I had ever been. I saved up every dollar I made from my art until one day I had enough to take a chance. I walked into my boss's office and quit my job. It was the scariest and most liberating thing I have ever done. I was officially a full-time artist. My hobby had become my career. My life, which was once so gray and empty, was now filled with color, purpose, and the constant, exciting challenge of creating. My journey taught me that it's never too late to press restart. It doesn't matter how lost you feel or how insignificant you think you are. Somewhere inside you there's a passion, a forgotten dream waiting to be rediscovered. It might be a paintbrush, a guitar, or a sewing machine. You just have to be brave enough to pick it up and try, even if you fail at first. Don't be afraid to be a beginner. Don't be afraid to share your journey. You have the power to rebuild your life, to paint your own canvas with bright, bold colors. Your masterpiece is waiting for you to create it.